everybody. First question. Qui est francophone dans la salle ici? Wow! C'est cool, je suis content. C'est fun d'avoir les francophones. Malheureusement, je vais faire le truc en anglais, parce que aussi c'est filmé. Je vais mettre ça sur YouTube si ça ne vous dérange pas. Je vais faire ma présentation en anglais. So, Patricia, Marrcoccia, and Maziar, who are behind this movie, they asked me if I could host the event in Montreal, which I graciously accepted to. My name is Jonathan Pageau. It seems that you'll see my face in this movie. I haven't seen it, so I don't know. I don't know much about it. So if don't start punching me out the door if it's horrible. I don't know. I have no idea. But I've been hearing really good things about the documentary, so I'm excited to see it with you guys. If you don't know a little bit the story of the movie, Patricia was filming a documentary about Jordan Peterson and his relationship with his friend Charles, who's Native American and who's a carver. And Jordan and this man had developed a very close relationship to the extent that Jordan was adopted into his family. And so Patricia was filming this story as the events around Jordan Peterson erupted. And that's why she got this inside scoop on the event. And Patricia and Maziar, just very normal, liberal, left-leaning people in Toronto, all of a sudden, friends with Jordan, all of a sudden see this crazy whirlwind around him and are trying to make sense of why such extreme positions are being taken regarding him. And so the documentary was kind of slowly built up as she was in this whirlwind, filming things, filming the events and putting it together. She's still actually trying to put together the documentary based on Jordan's relationship with Charles, which should come out, hopefully. I think they're crowdfunding right now for that. And so I met Jordan a few years ago. Again, also before this whirlwind, I heard him on CBC, and I was really excited about some of his ideas about psychology, how he understood religion, how he understood some of the problems we're facing. And myself as well was caught up in this crazy story, all of a sudden all these extreme positions being pulled on each side of him. And so I've just been following the story just as you guys, and I'm excited to see how Patricia and Maziar are going to tell the story. So after the event, I'm going to give a short question and answer. Obviously, I can't answer everything about Jordan Peterson. I'm not Jordan Peterson. There are a lot of things about the man that I love very much. I also have my criticisms of him, as I'm sure all of you do. And the great thing about Jordan is that he is willing to engage with those criticisms. So if you have questions for me, at the end, I will stick around and be willing to answer some questions. So enjoy the movie. So if you guys if there's something you want to ask me, obviously, like I said, I'm not Jordan Peterson, I can't answer for him, but I can try to answer as best as I can the questions you have. Si vous posez une question en français, je vais répondre en français. If you ask a question in English, and I'll answer in English. So if anybody has something they want to ask.
Great.
Yeah. The man, the guy.
Is there any arguments from the people who made the film as to what was left on the cutting room floor that they were passionate that should have been in the film?
I don't know how they perceive it right now, but one thing is for sure is that this movie was made out of a CBC Special. I don't know if some of you saw the CBC Special. And so for them, it actually was an opportunity to put in the content that they had wanted to put in. Because in the CBC Special, they obviously were somewhat, they were under the CBC, they had certain requirements that they had to fill, and so making this movie was a way for them to do that, was to put in more content that they wanted to put in. So if there's some content that they wanted to put in that they didn't put in, I don't know.
What do you mean by obligations to fill?
Well, CBC, I don't know. CBC, they had a certain angle that they wanted, they did it in the way that, I don't know. I don't want to answer that. But it was also very short, and they felt like they couldn't get everything they wanted to get out into that video. So this was kind of the way that they could expand the discussion and make it bigger.
In your opinion, is it fair?
What, the movie? I think it's fair. I think that...
Sorry.
How can I say this? I would say that it's hard because Jordan is such a polarizing figure, and he's my friend. So I think it's fair in the sense that I feel like they presented the people that were closest to him that criticized him, I felt like the criticisms that they posed, they put up some of the more controversial things that he'd said. So I feel like they were able to show a little bit of the controversy around him, some of the things he said that were kind of edgy, kind of on the edge. But at the same time, I feel like what comes out is very positive, but that's also because of my own, what I bring to it as well.
Do you think that in the process of just focusing so much on Jordan's polarizing effect, that his ideas, like his deep ideas, fall into the wayside? Like having seen his biblical things and his thoughts on alchemy and maps of meaning, like all his deep thoughts, do you find he's frustrated that he spends so much time talking about this stuff that he loses out on investigating those ideas further with people?
I think that...
Juste répéter la question.
Oh, okay. All right. So he asks if the polarization around Jordan, if it maybe is taking away from what his really deep message is in terms of his understanding of religion, his insights into alchemy, into different aspects of reality, if this polarizing effect is taking away from that. I think that it's a, how can I say this? It's like a 50-50 thing, where on the one hand, I think Jordan is a very smart person and extremely... how can I say this? He's very tactical, and so he was able also to use this controversy that he didn't expect to be able to talk about the things that he really cared about.
Something that's glossed over is his idea of prophetic dreams, and it's kind of shown as like making him look crazy.
Yeah.
But Jung has like extensive writings on those. They're legitimate concerns, and it's just something we never hear about in a serious manner.
So he says that Jordan has some insights on prophetic dreams, and in the video it's shown to make him look a bit crazy, but that it's something that Jung has talked about. Well, I think in that section they were really trying to show the point of view of the person, his friend, who criticized him. So I think that's probably why it came out that way. But yeah.
Thank you.
I just to follow up, René Descartes, the great rationalist philosopher, also had prophetic dreams. I'm writing a paper on that. But I was wondering, do you know how Jordan and Tammy are doing? Because frankly, I'm kind of worried.
Yeah. So he asked if I know how Jordan is doing because he's worried.
And his wife.
Yeah, and his wife. It was very strange because I was having very short, I had this kind of short little email exchanges with him. We write notes back and forth every few months. And I've been really following Tammy's story. And so when things started to get better, I got a note from him, and he was saying that it seemed like it was getting better, and it was kind of this strange, surprising event. They don't really know exactly how it is that it happened, but she's getting better. And then I learned about his own problems through Michaela's video, like most of us did. And so since then, I kind of waited a little bit. I sent him a short message. He didn't answer, but I don't know. I don't know what I think that Jordan is he's very smart, and he realized what was going on in terms of the medication that he was taking, and he probably just said, okay, I need to nip this in the bud because he wants to get back. He's writing another book. He has so many things that he wants to do, so he just wants to get rid of this problem and then move on. That's the way I perceive it, but I don't know. I haven't had any news from him since.
I heard an update today, and they said it was an allergic reaction to the cyclodone, and then it's being resolved.
Okay, so he's saying that he heard an update today that it was an allergic reaction to?
Clonazepam.
Yeah, clonazepam, this strange medication for anxiety that he was reacting to. Yeah, that's what I heard as well. And that he checked himself into a rehab center to be able to kind of just get it out of his system and move on.
Am I correct in my understanding that this is the only showing of this documentary in Canada?
So he asked if it's the only showing of the documentary in Canada. No, it's going to be shown in several places in Canada. It's going to be, I think, the only showing in Montreal.
Okay.
But, it got shut down in Toronto.
What, do you know why?
Yeah, because someone who works for the movie theater complained about how some things were offensive, and now it just got shut down in New York. They did one showing in New York, and it was sold out, and then they said, okay, so we're going to add another showing, and it was shut down. Maziar sent me a message just this morning to tell me. So it's crazy because when you watch the documentary, it's hard to imagine that someone could have presented a fairer representation, considering that it is about Jordan Peterson, that it is a video, it is a documentary about him, but that there is this desire to fairly show all the sides. That despite that, there's still this desire to still shut him down. So,
what was offensive? What was said?
So she asked what was offensive. I don't know. I don't know what was offensive. I mean, I think it had to do with the same issue that from the beginning that had to do with transgender questions. Yeah.
But freedom of expression is something that actually affects us as Canadians, right, over here. And that's not really a thing that happens south of the border, correct?
So he says freedom of expression is something that affects us here in Canada, but is not necessarily something that is affecting people south of the border. I think it's a question that is being posed right now. You know, there's so many confluence of events that are bringing this whole freedom of expression question. Social media, the internet, all these things have opened up the door for all kinds of possibilities of expression that we didn't realize that were before. Anonymous. You know, like all these anonymous people online that say the wildest things because they're anonymous. All these things, they didn't exist before. So this is all new, and people are trying to figure out, how do we deal with this? How far do we let it go? You know, and so it's a difficult problem. But it's true that in the U.S., people are protected by the Constitution itself, and so they're, you know, those that are for freedom of speech, they have something to stand upon. Whereas in Canada, we don't have that constitutional stand. We just have a kind of common law or a common vision of how we imagine freedom in a Western society, but it's not as ingrained in our culture, for sure. Yes, sir.
Will the film eventually be available online?
So he asked if the film will be available online. Yes, they're negotiating right now. It's for sure it's going to be on Apple, iTunes, and they're negotiating with other streaming platforms.
Movie poster? I look everywhere.
He's asking for a movie poster? I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah.
One thing I noticed, the movie didn't really talk much or at all about the impact of the biblical series that he did. I was wondering if you have any overall comments about his biblical series and if you guys ever talked about it.
So he asks, because the movie didn't deal with Jordan's biblical series, he's asking me if about that, if we've talked about it, if there's something, what I think about the biblical series. I think that Jordan's biblical series are, on the one hand, this amazing thing that came about, where here's this professor talking about the Bible, trying to get to the deepest meaning that he can find in the Bible, and millions of people watching it, and it's just astounding. That first video about what is God, I mean, I think it's got millions of views by now. So I thought it was just astounding. And then about the biblical lectures themselves, sometimes he says great, amazing things, and sometimes he says things that are questionable. Sometimes he says things that are kind of just, we don't know where he gets them from, and it's like this wild roller coaster, and that's Jordan Peterson. He is like, I'm going to take you on this trip that I'm on, and I'm not sure exactly where I'm going. I'm going to ride this, and I'm going to pay attention to what people are saying, and I'm willing to change my opinion if I'm saying something too weird. And so when you watch the videos, you're like, sometimes like, wow, this amazing insight, and then where is he going? What's he saying? I don't understand why he's going there. Then, oh wow, this amazing insight. So that's how I feel about his biblical series. I would love to have more time to talk to him about that, but to be honest, Jordan has become, I mean, if Tammy says that she's lost him to the world, for sure I think all of his friends feel similar. Like, I have little tidbits, little emails from Jordan, and he regrets it. He says, I'm sorry I'm not able to be more present, but that's reality. Yeah, I haven't seen Jordan in, I guess, since late 2008, early 2018, I think. So I haven't seen him for more than almost 2 years, a year and a half. Yeah.
Yes, good evening. I'm here to see about Jordan Peterson. I'm also extremely interested in freedom of speech and freedom of expression. We don't have a constitution like the States, but we do have a Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which I haven't studied, but I have looked into. So I just want to clarify that free speech is one thing in Canada, and freedom of expression is an entirely other thing. So I would encourage everybody to go to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and discover what
Right.
they are. Thank you.
And so he said that we do have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and he encourages everybody here to see what our Canadian Charter says about freedom of speech in Canada.
Ma réaction au film, c'est je suis un peu. Je pense que Peterson est en train de faire arriver ce qu'il veut éviter à cause de la manière dont il s'y prend. Je pense qu'il parle beaucoup de la montée du fascisme et du nazisme, mais qu'est-ce qui a nourri cette montée-là? C'était le communisme puis les deux forces opposées, qui faisaient que c'était sûr qu'il allait y avoir un des extrêmes qui allait persister. Puis, dans la manière qu'il s'adresse exclusivement à la droite, puis dans le mépris que je ressens de lui, je pense qu'il est assez affiché qu'il y a pour le social justice warrior, il est en train vraiment de nourrir cette haine-là, puis de agrandir le trou qui existe au lieu de retisser la société. Puis je me demandais, mais je voulais avoir ta réaction par rapport à ça. Est-ce que tu es d'accord avec moi? Est-ce que tu as une critique à Peterson de ce côté-là? Ou est-ce que tu es plutôt d'accord de la manière qu'il s'y prend?
Moi, dans mon expérience, c'est parce que moi, j'ai été comme mis directement dans le feu à un moment donné. Tu sais, tout d'un coup, je commençais à recevoir des mails, des gens qui me contactaient et tout ça. Puis, ce que j'ai vu au début, c'est vrai. Puis j'en parle dans l'entrevue légèrement. Au début, j'ai remarqué que les gens de droite, on se sont comme accrochés à Jordan parce qu'il y avait l'impression qu'il y avait tellement peu de personnages à droite au Canada, en fait, il n'y en a pas, qui sont comme intéressants. Fait que là, ils se sont accrochés à lui. Là, ils ont dit, OK, tu sais, ça va être lui notre personnage. Mais ce que j'ai aussi vu rapidement, j'ai vu deux choses. Moi, j'ai eu l'expérience personnelle de gens qui étaient tentés vraiment par extrême droite, vraiment des idées néo-nazis, des idées d'extrême droite, qui, à cause de Jordan Peterson, sont revenus vers un centre normal, c'est-à-dire une genre de droite conservatrice, comme je disais, fais ta vie, travaille fort, fais une famille, c'est ça le vrai conservateur, c'est ça, c'est pas l'espèce de nationaliste identitariste. Moi, je l'ai vu, j'en ai plusieurs personnes qui m'ont contacté puis qui m'ont raconté leur histoire, comme quoi ils ont bougé de l'extrême vers quelque chose de moins extrême.
Laisse-moi vous parler,
ouais.
Je sens que je pense que c'est l'amour qui va ramener le gap. Puis le fait qu'il y a cette haine-là du social justice warrior. Je regarde les personnes trans dans le film à qui ils s'adressent, puis moi j'ai voulu prendre soin d'elles. Puis je vois que c'est pas ça qu'il fait. Ça me dérange. Puis je pense que ça cristallise, dans le fond, le débat, plutôt que de rassembler. N'est-ce pas?
Oui, écoute, moi, ce que j'ai vu, c'est que ça dépend vraiment de comment tu le vois. Moi, ce que j'ai vu de lui, c'est que aussitôt que tout ça s'est passé, il a tout de suite mis la main, puis il a mis à la main pour voir s'il y avait des gens dans la communauté trans qui étaient prêts à lui parler. Il n'y a personne qui était prêt à lui parler, à part des trans qui étaient conservateurs. Puis tout de suite après ça, il a fait une vidéo avec une personne à Vancouver, puis il a fait une entrevue avec elle, où il a discuté, puis il a demandé comment qu'on peut arriver à une entente. Fait qu'il a tout de suite mis la main. Puis il a fait des conférences avec elle à Vancouver. Moi, j'étais là à une des conférences qu'il a faites avec elle. Je me souviens plus de son nom. Darren Mayer. Ouais. Alors, moi, c'est le geste que j'ai vu qu'il a fait pour essayer de mettre la main du côté des gens qu'il voyait comme leur ennemi sans nécessairement compromettre son point de vue, sans nécessairement dire je vais juste accepter toutes vos demandes. T'sais, c'est ça lui qui dit. Il dit moi je veux discuter, mais je veux pas dire parce que je refuse certaines choses que là je suis un monstre, je suis un nazi, je suis parce que tout le monde presse avec leurs doigts leur capacité politique, là, c'est pas juste cette communauté-là. Toutes les communautés vont mettre leur point où ce qu'ils peuvent pour avancer leur but politique, disons.
I think you see a lot of people getting their lives in order, coming to faith, all these things that are happening because of the Jordan Peterson phenomenon. But what's next for this? Because it seems like maybe it was a bit of this big event that happened. Peterson had a lot of attention, and I might be wrong, but maybe it's starting to peter out a bit. So I wonder, like, what do you think is going to happen next? What's the next change in the culture? How are we going to move things into better shape?
So he asks, what's next? He says the Jordan Peterson event was a moment, and he's bringing people back to fixing up their lives, some back to faith, all these things. But he asks, what do we do now? Because, of course, it's a wave, and the wave feels like it's kind of going down, although, my goodness, every time I think, all right, Jordan's reached his peak, and then it's like, okay, one more. It's like 1 more million. Anyway, but it's true. At some point, it's going to fade. It's just like any phenomena. At some point, it's going to reach some height, and it's going to fade. And I think that's when we need to take what he's saying, the best things of what he's saying, to take them at heart, which is that's us now, right? It's our job to make our lives better, to make our families better, to make our immediate communities better, and work on that, and have real relationships and that's the next step, because that's what he says is the only thing that's going to save our culture, is if you take care of the people around you and you love your neighbor instead of being on Twitter fighting some, and Jordan is guilty of that, like Mathieu mentioned, like he does it, and then sometimes he's told me, he said, okay, I have to. His son will take away his Twitter rights sometimes because he just gets caught up. Yeah. And even myself, he kept telling me, he's like, he says on Twitter, don't answer anybody that you don't follow, or else you're in serious trouble. Like, just don't do it. It just drags you into these emotions, and it's not worth it. And he's not perfect. He's fallen into that hole. You saw some of those crazy tweets that he wrote. And so he's done it himself. And I'm sure if you ask him, he'd be like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. He's very reasonable in that sense. So I think it's us. That's the only thing I can say. Yeah, I'll leave that.
Moi, j'aimerais juste mettre un commentaire. C'est qu'actuellement, moi, ce qui m'a attiré à Peterson, c'est le message de gros bon sens qu'il y avait à travers ses conférences, qui répondait à ses critiques et autres. Et malheureusement, les critiques, la manière la plus simple peut-être de discréditer quelqu'un, c'est de twister ses paroles et ses pensées. Donc, d'après moi, c'est ce que j'entrevois actuellement. Ça sert à rien d'essayer de faire comprendre aux gens que les gens ne veulent pas comprendre. Donc, c'est de focaliser sur les gens qui sont prêts à écouter, de leur donner la chance de réfléchir au message qui est donné. C'est pas quelque chose d'extraordinaire, c'est du gros sens commun en anglais, common sense. C'est simple. Simple common sense. Puis après ça, tu travailles avec les gens qui veulent travailler. Point de vue.
Tu as eu un accès privilégié à Jordan. J'étais curieux justement d'entendre ce que tu aimes le plus de lui, comme ta plus grande critique que tu as.
Non, mais disons ce que j'aime le plus de lui. Moi, ce que j'aime le plus de lui, si je peux juste dire une chose, c'est qu'il est pour le vrai. C'est-à-dire, ce que tu vois là, c'est ça. Il n'y a pas d'autre chose. Il ne fait pas semblant. Il y a beaucoup de gens qui ont dit « Ah, il fait ça, tu sais, c'est juste un acte parce qu'il veut être donné pour connu. » Non, tout ce qu'il dit... De toute façon, tu l'entends la lettre qu'il écrit à son père en 1986, il dit la même chose là. Tu sais, malgré qu'il est prêt à changer son opinion quand il est confronté avec ça. Puis moi, quand je lui parle, tu sais, quand tu dis quelqu'un t'écoute, c'est vraiment désarmant de rencontrer quelqu'un qui te regarde, qui t'écoute. Puis que là, il y a une scène là qu'on voit quand il rencontre une de ses étudiantes, puis tu vois, il l'écoute, puis elle dit quelque chose, il dit ouais, ok. Puis tu vois, il prend ça au sérieux, il écoute. Ça, je dirais que c'est la chose que j'admire le plus de lui. Tu sais, ma plus grande critique. C'est dur de formuler une critique, là. Disons que moi, ma critique que j'ai de lui, c'est que je ne suis pas d'accord avec certaines de ses idées. Je suis d'accord, lui comme personne, je l'admire beaucoup, puis je le respecte, puis je trouve qu'il est sincère, je lui fais confiance, mais il y a certaines de ses idées avec lesquelles je suis juste pas d'accord. Tu sais, il y a certaines interprétations qu'il y a du christianisme que je trouve qu'il se trompe, il ne comprend pas le christianisme. Il y a certains aspects du postmodernisme, par exemple, que je pense qu'il comprend mal le postmodernisme. Il y a plusieurs petites choses qu'il dit des fois que je suis comme
il y a certaines opinions que je suis juste pas d'accord. Mais ce qui est génial avec lui, c'est que c'est correct. Moi, je suis chrétien, vous avez vu, je suis chrétien. J'ai fait une vidéo avec Rebel Wisdom où la vidéo s'appelait Jordan Peterson, the Heretic. Puis là, je disais que ce qu'il disait, c'était totalement hérétique, c'était pas du tout chrétien. Puis là, moi, j'ai envoyé une vidéo à Jordan, puis j'ai dit, hey Jordan, here's me calling you a heretic. Ha ha ha. Lui, ça le dérange pas. Parce que moi, ça fait pas que je suis moins son ami à cause que je suis pas d'accord avec ses idées. Puis lui, il va pas m'en vouloir parce que je le critique en public. C'est ça revient à la chose que j'apprécie le plus de lui. C'est que malgré que je peux, devant tout le monde, dire ça, je trouve que ça n'a pas d'allure. Puis comme tu vois son ami, qu'on le voit, qui est comme, ah non, je peux croire te dire ça, que tu as dit ça, mais ça ne va pas affecter son amitié avec Jordan. Puis c'est ça qui est génial de lui. Peut-être, attends, je vais passer. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a de ça, mon gars?
Avant le film, je me demandais où est-ce qu'on allait vous voir dans le film.
Ouais.
Je me demande, probablement, vous êtes posé la même question. Eric me disait que ça va sûrement arriver avec la fameuse vidéo de la métaphysique de P.
Ouais.
Et puis, finalement, non, c'était pas là qu'on vous a vu. C'est avec Charlottesville. Et puis, je me demandais comment qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ça? Puis, c'est quoi votre réaction face à ça? Est-ce que c'est là-dedans que vous voyez votre... Parce que c'est ça, plusieurs personnes ici sûrement qui ont entendu parler de vous avec la métaphysique de P. Et je me demandais si vous êtes à l'aise avec cet endroit-là dans le film.
Bien, honnêtement, il demande si je suis à l'aise avec l'endroit que j'ai apparu dans la vidéo par rapport à la politique surtout. Honnêtement, je ne suis pas surpris. Je suis pas surpris que c'est ça. On a fait l'entrevue, mais vous savez comment ça fonctionne les entrevues. J'ai fait l'entrevue de 2 heures avec eux, beaucoup de questions, beaucoup de choses, on a parlé de plein d'affaires. Mais je suis pas surpris que c'est ça qu'ils ont mis, parce que c'était ça le thème un peu du vidéo, le problème de la controverse politique qu'il y a eu autour de lui. Bien, c'est certain pour ceux qui ont vu mes vidéos, qui suivent mes vidéos, moi, ce qui m'intéresse, c'est le symbolisme. C'est ça qui m'intéresse le plus. C'est ça qui m'a connecté à Jordan. C'est sa vision, sa capacité de voir le monde avec des structures, de regarder le monde avec certaines structures, puis de comprendre comment ces structures-là se répètent. Moi, c'est ça qui m'a attiré vers lui, bien plus que tout le côté politique. Alors ça, je suis pas surpris, mais en même temps, moi, je m'identifie pas à ce documentaire-là. C'est pas, je suis là, ce que j'ai dit, je suis d'accord avec ce que j'ai dit, mais c'est pas moi.
I know for a fact that Jordan Peterson's stances and such that differ depending on how people view him as an individual. But I do believe that Jordan Peterson's stance kind of stems towards understanding that in the political spectrum, that there's people out there in the world that want to govern a type of micromanagement for other individuals so that people cannot freely express themselves or identify themselves in a certain manner without them having to go through some form of conflict or some type of aggression of some sort towards a certain group, right, a marginalized group. And I think that that's what he is fighting for, in my opinion. So I want to ask you, right, there's a movie that's coming out. You heard of the Joker movie that's coming out, right? You've heard that there are people that are not necessarily feeling a certain way about the movie due to the fact that it's apparently violent and it encourages certain people on a certain side to view that particular movie in a way that's supposed to encourage them to do the exact same thing that's happening within that content of the movie. But do you believe that people are more than capable of trying to follow something like that as if it's like a blueprint?
Yeah. So he asked mostly, he said several things about Joker, but he ended up asking about the Joker movie and what I think in terms of how there's this crazy reaction to the Joker movie and how it's going to be a blueprint for certain people to act a certain way. I think it's hilarious. I think it's funny because it just came out like 2 weeks ago. It just came out about a clown that kills children. And then 2 weeks later, there's this Joker movie. But now this is the movie that is being targeted. I haven't seen the movie. I'm going to go see it for sure now. I'm going to go see it, and I might do a YouTube interpretation of it because I'm trying to understand what is happening in the culture so that this movie was targeted for this kind of weird political pressure that we're seeing. It's very strange.
Actually, it's quite funny that you mentioned about the It movie, because I've also heard that somebody made a post about a trigger warning for those who are of the LGBT community, right? Specifically those in the, I guess, L and the G, right? Due to the fact that a gay couple in the It movie Chapter 2 got murdered in a certain way.
Okay.
And they said that it was traumatizing, so if anybody feels a certain way, they shouldn't watch the movie because of that.
Right.
So,
Yes, sir.
it's
I was
crazy.
wondering what the ideological, if you know what the ideological leaning of the people that made the movie were, because I tend to get a sense that they tried to be fair, but I also feel that they may have tried probably too much. There seemed to be very little of Jordan and more of other people, which was kind of strange for me. And maybe if a team, I'm thinking maybe if a team had a wider ideological scope, it may have been may have gotten, different results.
Yeah.
I want to say better.
So he asks about the political leanings of the people who made the movie, and he wonders if it had tinged the movie and whether or not, because there's a lot of other people besides Jordan in the movie and everything. They might watch this movie, so I'm going to say it, Patricia and Pageau. They're just regular left-leaning artistic types from Toronto. Patricia knew Jordan from before, and they got all caught up in this, and so they're trying to figure it out for themselves as well. Like, where do they stand in terms of kind of these left-leaning people in this question of free speech and this question of Jordan, because they obviously like him, they admire him, but they're trying to understand it. So yeah, they do have their own political leaning, but I don't think that another version of this movie could have been made, and it would be playing in theaters. This movie is already being shut down.
Right.
So if any other type of movie had been made, oh my goodness.
As a man who's fluent in symbology, if you could distill Jordan's essence down to some archetypes or some symbols,
So he asked, as someone who's good in symbology, if I could distill his symbology, what would I do? Jordan warns against doing that. He's said several times that you never should become an archetype because it'll kill you. I've said several times that I think that Jordan is and I say it in the movie as well, that he's an in-between figure. And that's why he's receiving all the scorn from both sides, right? So he doesn't fit. He's kind of like this strange figure. I've said he's something like John the Baptist or someone like Elijah. These weird figures that are kind of out of place and they're telling everybody, pay attention, pay attention. St. John the Baptist's main saying was, here's the voice crying out in the wilderness, right? Make straight the ways for the Lord. It's basically saying, clean your room. That's what John the Baptist was saying. John the Baptist was saying, clean your room, right, so that something bigger can happen. And so that, if I could reduce Jordan Peterson to one thing, I would say he's kind of a weird John the Baptist figure. Weird John the Baptist. Sorry, somebody who hasn't yet.
Yeah. So given that the film was shut down in Toronto and in New York, were you at all worried that something's going to happen here?
So he asks if I was worried that something would happen here. No, I was not worried that something would happen here. And the reason why I was not worried is because Jordan's just not that known here. If you notice, he didn't come to Montreal on his 12 Rules for Life. Francophone culture has not really kind of seen him on the horizon. So I think that he has too little attention to draw any ire in Montreal.
I thought differently, actually.
Yeah?
So I thought it was just because of the fact that this is more of a, I would say, someone more in the conservative type, where like Ontario, especially Toronto, is more liberal at least. leaning. So I can't really.
Yes?
Just wondered, why do you think it doesn't, Jordan's not picking up with our Quebec Francophone culture?
Yes. Why I think Jordan is not picking up with our Quebec Francophone culture. I think one of the reasons is because a lot of the kind of crazy postmodern stuff, like the really, really intense, it's just not here, at least not yet. So there's some inkling of it. We see it a little bit, but it's not this massive. It's not a massive movement in Quebec. So I think that a lot of the things that Jordan is saying, at least for now, is not really resonating because we don't have it as much here. That's my perception.
Je pourrais juste mettre un commentaire sur la journée que Jordan s'en va. Et puis, je ne sais pas s'il est évident que quelqu'un habite à Montréal, il va se faire descendre par les médias. Purement simplement, ils vont détruire, ils vont stationner son message. C'est quelque chose qu'il faut faire plein attention.
Alors, il suggère que si Jordan venait ici, que les médias l'attaqueraient, qu'il serait. Ouais, moi, je probablement que c'est vrai. Mais c'est juste qu'il n'y a pas d'attention ici. Je dis, moi, son livre 12 Rules for Life en français, je l'ai vu au Costco en vente. Là, parce que, probablement qu'il n'y en a pas vendu tant que ça au Québec. Là.
Yeah, I know you said you had some limited contact with him over the recent times, and perhaps you're not at liberty to say either, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you know if he's working on any other books or writing anything?
So he asks if he's working on another book. Yeah, he is.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he wrote, if you know, the 12 Rules for Life book was a condensation of an answer that he wrote on Quora.
Okay.
And it was like, I don't know, 40-something answers, like 50 answers or something. And so he's going to write. He's just going to take a lot of those other rules that he wanted to talk about and make a sequel to his book. So, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask what you would think is missing in Jordan Peterson's worldview or view of the world like that. I think he has like this idea in terms of purpose, like that you have it's kind of intuition based, like your ideal, you will kind of you know what you should do.
Yeah.
And I think one time he said, kind of follow that ideal, unless you have malevolent thoughts and you think that you should do evil things.
Yeah.
In which case you're kind of screwed up. But follow that ideal.
So he's asking me what I think is missing in Jordan Peterson. I think that because Jordan is so wary about totalitarian thought, because he's so wary of totalitarian thought, he really focuses on the individualism. And the danger of that is that it can become that. It can become individualism. And we've had enough individualism in the world, right? We've had enough of fragmented individuals who just are on their own. And I know that's not what he wants. And I know, I don't want to distort his message. I know that's not what he wants. But sometimes he will point to the fact that these communions of individuals, it has to scale up. It has to scale up into communities and scale up into something more, right? And so the difficulty of that is that does end up looking something like identity. Now the question is, how do we do that so that it's not dangerous and that it's not toxic? How can we create communion without the danger of the totalitarian extreme? And I think that that's something that he doesn't really talk about a lot. And so, I mean, obviously, I come from my own side. I believe that that's what religion did. And he says that too, right? He says that too, that's what religion used to do. But he's not willing to, like, he doesn't want to say that it could still be possible. And that for me, that's the big gap, I would say.
I offer a possible way of looking at that. Individualism might be more about rights, but he pushes responsibility a lot more.
Yeah.
So if you take individuality with responsibility, it's a hypothesis, but I think that's probably what will keep you safe, quote unquote, from going down the road of individualism.
Yeah, that's exactly the way that he frames it, and I think that there's some value to that, which is he's saying, I'm telling people, individuals, that they have to take on themselves, that they have to take on the responsibility on themselves and not not focus on their rights and their privileges. And I agree. But I still don't see how in his system it scales up. I mean, I think it does, but
Yeah, just to jump off that, what I found most interesting about Jordan was he gave a talk on creativity, and he talks about like Mozart symphonies and Shakespeare and Lion King and all that stuff, and it's interesting how he brings those stories to life, and I'm wondering if he would take his message more into the mainstream culture, like Kanye West tweeted about Jordan Peterson, and I was like waiting for the Kanye West Jordan interview. I don't know if it's impossible, but I was like, this is a great opportunity for Jordan to use that channel. Because right now it's very political ideas university. And they hit the mainstream. It's like, what effect does Jordan have on Post Malone music?
No, I think that he would definitely do that for sure. I mean, he sold 3 million books. That's not academic level discussion. That's like that's popular. Right.
I'm not making that. I'm just saying that it'd be cool to
have a Kanye West, Jordan Peterson. I'm waiting for that interview. I've been waiting for that interview since before I knew Jordan Peterson. I've been waiting for a Kanye West. Jordan Peterson.
So maybe Jordan could like jump on and go first. I don't know. That'd be cool.
All right, maybe, go ahead, Mike.
The part in the film for me that I probably thought was the most disheartening was the scene with the professor who wrote the article that he thinks he's becoming a dangerous figure. More than that, it was when he said that Jordan was trying to reach out to him multiple times and he still wouldn't talk to him. That was the part that kind of sunk a bit. Do you think that most people perceive Jordan Peterson as someone who wants to genuinely have good faith conversations with them, or as just someone who's just listening, but he's not really thinking about what he's saying?
So he says that the most disheartening part was the part when his friend wrote that article and then wasn't going to take Jordan's calls, despite the fact that Jordan was calling him. He asked about how people perceive. I mean, I don't know how people perceive Jordan Peterson. For sure, I think that, like I said, my experience of him is that he's the real deal. Like, he's what you see. He's not pretending. He wants to have as much real contact that when he tears up, it's not theater. He's actually genuinely touched by whatever effect he's able to have, and to see people get their lives together and to see people mend their relationships, and that's like he really wants that to happen. So people that don't like him and that have already made up their minds at this point, I don't think they're going to change. I don't think they're going to change their mind. And Jordan has been saying now for a year that he wants to stop doing interviews, just because it's so exhausting. You guys don't realize, like when he does an interview with that, like when he does one of those interviews, like that French guy that you saw in the interview, like just how arrogant he is, and just kind of like. And Jordan is out for like 3 days after that. Because he doesn't want that. He doesn't like that. He hates it. He hates these kind of conflictual conversations. People think that he's looking for them, that someone gets a rise out of this conflict. He despises it. And so when he has to face this thing, he's going to face it. But then it's like it just wrecks him. And so he's been saying that he wants to get away from that for a while now. I don't know if he'll be able to, but
one of the biggest criticisms about Dr. Peterson is that I think this is echoed by Noam Chomsky, is that he's a bit of a Rorschach test. What's your take on that?
So he says one of the biggest criticisms of Jordan is that he's a bit of a Rorschach test. And what's my thought about that? I think that you're not totally wrong. I think that's what an intermediary character is. An intermediary character is a character that isn't totally defined, and you project into that character, and that's why people are projecting into him, because it's crazy. It's like the type of things people are saying. I know people that have told me, extreme right people right-wing people who write me and say, how can you even talk to him? He's a globalist, he's a shill, he's an Illuminati, he's all this. And then someone else is saying that he's a Nazi, that he's a horrible misogynist, racist, all this stuff. So it's like, how can he be these two extremes at the same time? But that's the thing. That's why he's attracting that opprobrium. That's why he's attracting that, because he is this weird intermediary character. And so he is a Rorschach test. I agree.
Just along those lines, sometimes when I like him a lot, I find when you answered one of my questions, which was, I feel that he's quite intense and he does listen and authentic. That's what I get out of him, the feeling I get. But sometimes I've seen him in some interviews and that, and I'm thinking, you're so smart, man, and you know this guy, like, just break it down. Like, he doesn't break it down. I find sometimes he doesn't know, I perceive, he doesn't know how to close the gap. He knows the other person is going off of it, or like, I think he's so bright that I think he would know how to rejoin the parts, and he doesn't do it. So then I think, why? Because I think he comes from a position of love. But maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's tired here.
So he is tired. And she says sometimes she sees him in interviews and she feels like he could connect things, like he could bring things together, but that he doesn't. That he's smart, that he should, and he doesn't. And it's, all I can say about that is, how many of us have ever been in a public discussion where someone is attacking you? Like, I have never been in that situation, where you're on air, there's going to be a million people watching, and now the person is going after you. It's like, how do you even react to that? Yeah. So I think that a lot of it is just trying to stay cool, just staying cool. My goodness. It's like he doesn't get angry a lot. I would, you can imagine just saying, this is it, this interview's done, you can see you have bad intentions, I'm out of here. It's like, but, so I think a lot of it is that. It's just tough. Yeah, maybe.
So a question that really bugged me a lot of times when I was listening to his videos or something like this is how I always perceive the trans community as being opposite to his views, right? So there's this multi-dimensional phenomenon that is Jordan Peterson, where you have the academic on one side, you have the father figure on one side, and then you have the person who's just trying to be true to his values. And sometimes it's a conflict between all those things, and what we're seeing is that he has this fight that's going for him against, like, what is against freedom of speech, for freedom of speech. And that's what the trans community is getting focused on, right? But I sort of refuse to believe that all his other aspects, one of which is this book about bettering yourself, can get across to that community. And if it does, why don't we see those in the media? What are your thoughts?
So he says that he feels like, I'll try to condense what you said, but he said he feels like that often how it's presented that he's talking, that it seems like it's against the trans community, but that there are all these complex, he's a very multifaceted figure, father figure, psychologist, all these things. And, like his book, 12 Rules for Life, he's wondering why, people in the trans community could use some of the things that are said, that there's nothing about trans people in that book. It's a book about how to make your life better, and why they're not willing to necessarily, there isn't that connection. And look, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question because I don't know. I'm not in that community. I think that there's a lot of people that are very vocal in that community, which don't necessarily represent the whole community. There are people who are just doing their thing and they're just trying to live their lives. So it's like I don't have that question. So maybe this could be the last one, because I saw the guy from the cinema come in and look at me a little bit like, okay, this has to end soon. Yeah, go ahead.
It's just not really a question, it's an announcement.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to carry on the conversation, there's a group of about 8 of us that are going to have a meetup at 12 Buster across the street.
Oh, so maybe I can make an announcement too, especially. Across the street. So I'm also because I'm doing this YouTube thing, and I feel like, how this lady said we need to do real people thing. So what I want to start doing is I also want to start to organize some kind of discussion in French, probably. So because on est au Québec, so I'm probably going to want to do some. You guys, all you English-speaking people can find all the kinds of discussion. But I'm probably wanting to start a French-speaking kind of discussion group to talk about a lot of the issues that Jordan's bringing up, about spirituality, about even politics. I'm not a big political guy, but we can talk about politics too. So if you're interested in that possibility, you can write me. I have my business cards here. I can give you a card. You can write me an email, and I'll try to set something up for those who are interested in that, maybe hopefully even starting next month. So if you're interested in that kind of discussion, you can come up to see me and we can set it up. All right, guys, thank you for coming. Thank you for your attention. If you enjoy the Symbolic World content, there's a lot of things you can do to help us out. If you're not subscribed, please do. Go ahead and share this to all your friends if you can. Get involved in the discussion. We have a Facebook group in which people can talk about these subjects. I will put all those links in the description. And also, if you can, please support us financially by going to my website, www.thesymbolicworld.com/support. And I also have a Patreon and a Subscribe Star. So thanks again, and I will see you soon.